I got him blocked. I got him blocked. He can't text me and I won't text him. He's blocked.
Kevin Durant and Kendrick Perkins have been locked in a heated feud for years, but things just took a turn. New footage has surfaced showing them going at it again, and it's not looking good. This latest blow-up started with a single tweet that sparked chaos across the NBA. I've got all the details, so let's get into it. The war between Kevin Durant and Kendrick Perkins. The NBA has always been wild when it comes to feuds, trash talk, on-court drama, and off-court beefs. From Shaq versus Kobe to Draymond versus everyone, we've seen it all. But Kevin Durant and Kendrick Perkins, that's a whole new level of petty chaos. Before we even get to the heated footage that just dropped, you need to know these two have been going at it. The first major crack in Kevin Durant's and Kendrick Perkins' relationship became visible during the 2018 NBA Finals Game 3 press conference incident. Kevin Durant, fresh off a dominant 43-point performance that helped the Golden State Warriors defeat the Cleveland Cavaliers, was sitting in front of reporters answering questions about his stellar night when Kendrick Perkins, who didn't even play in the game for Cleveland, decided to make his presence known in the most disrespectful way possible.
Kind of settling us down a little bit.
Anthony, last question, back left.
As Durant addressed the media with his typical calm demeanor, Perkins stopped in the hallway, peered into the interview room, and raised both middle fingers at Durant. Without saying a single word, the 6'10 center then walked away like he had just delivered the ultimate insult. Durant, noticing the provocation, quietly responded under his breath with, before seamlessly continuing with his media session as if nothing had happened. While some viewed this as playful trolling between former Oklahoma City Thunder teammates, it actually highlighted the underlying tension that was already beginning to simmer between the two players. The fact that Perkins felt compelled to disrespect Durant on what was arguably one of his best playoff performances suggested that their relationship had already started to sour, but this was just the appetizer. The main course came nearly 2 years later during what would become known as the January 9th, 2020 Twitter feud over Russell Westbrook and Durant's Warriors move. By this time, Perkins had transitioned into his role as an ESPN analyst, and his hot takes were already becoming legendary for their ability to stir controversy. The drama erupted when Perkins tweeted that he would appear on SportsCenter to argue that Westbrook was the greatest player to ever wear an Oklahoma City Thunder jersey, calling him Mr. Thunder. This claim was particularly provocative because Durant is widely regarded as a superior player to Westbrook by virtually every basketball metric that exists. It was like saying that a good supporting actor was better than the lead who carried the entire movie. When a Celtics writer challenged Perkins on this take, the former center doubled down by saying that Durant ditched OKC and left the door open for Russell. This was the exact wrong thing to say to Kevin Durant, who has never been one to let perceived disrespect slide, especially when it comes to his basketball abilities. Durant waited 9 hours before delivering what many consider one of the most devastating social media burns in NBA history. He responded by targeting Perkins' performance in the 2013 playoff series against the Memphis Grizzlies. This jab was particularly brutal because it referenced Perkins' absolutely terrible statistical output, 2 points and 3.8 rebounds per game on 26% shooting, which was a sensitive point given Perkins' declining athleticism following his ACL injury. But Perkins wasn't going to take this lying down. He fired back with a response that escalated the personal nature of the feud to unprecedented levels. Boy, stop, you did the weakest move in NBA history. Up on a Team 3, won in the Western Conference Finals, and then go join them the following season. Heart of champion right there. Perkins was referring to Durant's controversial 2016 decision to join the Golden State Warriors after the Thunder had blown a 3-1 lead to them in the Western Conference Finals. The exchange intensified dramatically as Perkins doubled down with what might be the most personal attack ever made by one former teammate against another in public. He accused Durant of taking the coward way out by joining a 73-9 Warriors team. Durant's response was telling in its dismissiveness. He replied with a yawning sloth gif and a handshake emoji, suggesting that the feud wasn't serious to him. He later tweeted, "We talking hoops, not life," indicating he viewed it as merely a basketball debate. However, Perkins continued the assault across multiple media platforms, appearing on Scal and Pals Radio and ESPN's The Jump to defend his stance that Westbrook was Mr. Thunder due to his loyalty and MVP award, while calling Durant sensitive for making the feud public. The most revealing part of this exchange was when Perkins claimed he sacrificed stats to set screens for Durant, implying Durant's criticism of his production was unfair. This feud drew massive attention from the basketball world, completely overshadowing Westbrook's emotional return to Oklahoma City and highlighting the deep-seated resentment that existed between these former teammates, particularly over Durant's decision to join the Warriors. The third major explosion came during the June 17, 2020 feud over Kyrie Irving comments and sellout accusation. This time, the conflict reignited over Perkins' criticism of Kyrie Irving, who had become Durant's Brooklyn Nets teammate. On ESPN's Get Up, Perkins criticized Irving's leadership with one of his most memorable quotes. "If you take Kyrie Irving's brain and put it in a bird right now, now, guess what that bird is gonna do? It's gonna fly backwards.
If you take Kyrie Irving brain and put it in a bird right now, guess what that bird is gonna do? It's gonna fly back.
He then went on to call Irving a distraction for advocating that NBA players sit out the 2020 season restart to support Black Lives Matter. Durant, who has always been fiercely protective of his teammates, responded on Instagram to a The Score post quoting Perkins by labeling him a sellout. This accusation hit different than their previous basketball-related disputes. Durant also retweeted a post by Nets teammate Wilson Chandler calling ex-players like Perkins suckers and shared a clip of Perkins throwing up an air ball, further mocking his former teammates' basketball abilities.
Just because I don't agree with what Kyrie got going on, don't mean I'm not fighting the same fight that you all are fighting. I am fighting for African Americans. I've been have. And that don't make you a sellout. That don't make me a sellout because I have a different opinion or disagree with someone else that's going about it another way.
Perkins' response was deeply emotional and personal. Appearing on ESPN's Get Up and First Take, he was visibly moved, even tearing up while discussing his commitment to racial equality and denying that he was unsupportive of Black Lives Matter. During this response, he also used the term cupcake in a tweet, which was a known dig at Durant from his Warriors days, showing that even in his emotional state, he couldn't resist getting in another shot. But the most explosive part of this feud came when Perkins tweeted, "I'm not about to talk about those OKC days and what you were doing in that locker room. I will not, but you definitely need to stop because you know I know." This cryptic message suggested that Perkins held sensitive information about Durant from their Thunder days, essentially threatening to expose something if Durant didn't back down. The most recent chapter in this ongoing saga occurred in February 2025 with their dispute over Thunder leadership claims. During an appearance on NBA Today, Perkins made what many considered his most outrageous claim yet, that he was the true leader of the Oklahoma City Thunder during his tenure from 2011 to 2015, ahead of future MVPs Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. This claim was so absurd that even Durant, who has generally tried to stay above the fray in recent years, couldn't help but respond.
I got him blocked. I got him blocked. He can't text me and I won't text him. He's blocked.
Durant, now with the Phoenix Suns, found this claim so ridiculous that he posted on social media, "I know this may be a reach, but this comment is by far the craziest ST I've seen this week." He later added via Shams Charania that Perk popped a perk, mocking Perkins' assertion as completely delusional. Perkins responded in a conversation with Brandon Scoop B. Robinson, doubling down on his claims and emphasized his role as the team's enforcer and locker room voice, claiming he provided critical leadership that kept the Thunder competitive during their championship window. What makes this ongoing feud so fascinating is how it has evolved from simple basketball disagreements to deeply personal attacks that reveal the complex dynamics of professional sports relationships. Each exchange has become more bitter and more public, suggesting that whatever wounds exist between these two men have only gotten deeper with time. The fact that they've been going at it for nearly 7 years now, with no signs of reconciliation, makes this one of the most enduring and entertaining feuds in recent NBA memory. To truly understand why Kevin Durant and Kendrick Perkins have developed such an intense and lasting animosity toward each other, you have to dig deep into their backgrounds, their time as teammates in Oklahoma City, and the fundamental differences in their personalities and life experiences that made their eventual falling out almost inevitable. From brotherhood to betrayal, the deep roots of their conflict. The foundation of their relationship was built during their shared time with the Oklahoma City Thunder from 2011 to 2015, but to understand why that foundation crumbled so spectacularly, you need to know who these men really are beneath the surface. Kevin Durant and Kendrick Perkins came from completely different worlds, and those differences would eventually create fault lines that no amount of shared success could bridge. Kevin Durant was born on September 29, 1988 in Washington, D.C., and grew up in a challenging environment in Prince George's County, Maryland. He was raised primarily by his mother, Wanda Durant, and grandmother Barbara Davis after his parents divorced when he was just an infant. His father, Wayne Pratt, would re-enter his life later, but Durant's formative years were shaped by strong women who taught him resilience and determination. Basketball became his escape from the tough streets of Maryland, and he developed into a quiet, introspective competitor who preferred to let his game do the talking. Durant's personality was always more reserved and sensitive than many of his peers. He was the type of player who could score 40 points in a playoff game and then go home and read critical comments about himself on social media. This sensitivity, which would later become evident in his numerous social media interactions and burner account controversies, was both a blessing and a curse. It drove him to be better, but it also made him vulnerable to the kind of public criticism that would come to define his relationship with Perkins. Kendrick Perkins, on the other hand, was born on November 10, 1984, in Nederland, Texas, and his childhood was marked by tragedy and hardship that would forge a completely different type of personality. When Perkins was just 5 years old, his mother was killed by her best friend friend, and his father, who was a professional basketball player in New Zealand, remained largely absent from his life. Perkins was raised by his grandparents on a farm, where hard work and toughness weren't just encouraged, they were necessary for survival. This upbringing instilled in Perkins a no-nonsense attitude and a belief that leadership meant being the loudest, most confrontational voice in the room. He developed into what you might call an old-school player, someone who believed that respect was earned through physicality, vocal leadership, and an unwavering willingness to challenge anyone who stepped out of line. This worked perfectly in Boston, where he won a championship in 2008 alongside veterans like Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, who appreciated and responded to that type of leadership style. When Perkins was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2011, he brought that same confrontational leadership style to a much younger team that included Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. Initially, this seemed to work well. Perkins described himself as the glue of the team, organizing group activities like team, texts, and outings to NFL games. He saw himself as the veteran presence who could bridge the gaps between what he perceived as different cliques within the roster. The early days of their relationship were actually quite close and personal.
The same sellout that's sitting right here, I remember this day like it was yesterday. May 8th, 2011, Mother's Day. You and I, Memphis, Tennessee, going through personal problems. And guess what? You came to my room.
Perkins has recounted how Durant would visit his home, interact with his children, and enjoy meals prepared by his wife. During Durant's 2014 MVP speech, he even acknowledged Perkins' support, highlighting his role as an enforcer and team leader. There were genuine moments of connection between these two men that went far beyond basketball.
We cried together. We cried some more, vented some more. We didn't leave that room until we confined in each other. And we left out of there and was like, you know what? We glad we had each other to lean on.
But beneath this surface friendship, there were fundamental differences brewing that would eventually tear them apart. The first major issue was their completely different views on leadership and team roles. Perkins saw himself as the Thunder's true leader, emphasizing his role in fostering team unity and holding stars accountable. This mindset was rooted in his Boston Celtics championship experience, where vocal enforcer-style leadership was not just accepted but required. However, Durant, as the team's best player and eventual 2014 MVP, likely felt that his contributions were being undervalued by Perkins's constant assertions of leadership. Durant's 2025 dismissal of Perkins's leadership claims as the craziest I've seen suggests that he viewed Perkins' role as vastly overblown, possibly feeling disrespected by a teammate whose on-court impact was significantly less than his own. This clash of egos, Perkins' vocal, confrontational leadership style versus Durant's quiet but dominant stardom, created an underlying tension that was exacerbated by the immense pressure Durant faced as the franchise's face. While Perkins could focus on being a leader and enforcer, Durant had to carry the weight of an entire organization's championship aspirations on his shoulders, all while dealing with constant media scrutiny and fan expectations. The second major factor that poisoned their relationship was Durant's controversial departure to Golden State in 2016. After the Thunder blew a 3-1 lead to the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, Durant made the decision to join the very team that had eliminated them. This move was widely criticized as weak and opportunistic, but for Perkins, it represented something much more personal, a betrayal of everything he thought he knew about Durant's character. Because of this, Perkins warned new teams that were looking to scout Durant.
Because Kevin Durant is not a needle mover, in my opinion, no more when it comes down to if you're trying to win a championship. And this is not something that I'm making up.
Perkins publicly criticized Durant's decision as the weakest move in NBA history, accusing him of taking the coward's way out. For someone like Perkins, who valued loyalty and toughness above all else, Durant's move to Golden State represented everything he despised about modern basketball, the idea that superstars could simply join forces rather than compete against each other. The third factor that contributed to their deteriorating relationship was Perkins' transition into media and his increasingly provocative public persona. After retiring in 2019, Perkins became an outspoken ESPN analyst who built his brand on making bold, controversial statements designed to generate reactions and drive engagement. His unfiltered style, rooted in his tough upbringing and enforcer mentality, led to increasingly provocative statements about Durant and other players. For Durant, who has always preferred to handle conflicts privately, Perkins' willingness to air their dirty laundry in public felt like a violation of their shared history. Durant's engagement in social media spats, including mocking Perkins' playoff statistics, suggests he felt betrayed by Perkins' decision to attack him publicly, especially from someone who knew him personally and understood his sensitivities. The fourth, fourth, and perhaps most damaging factor, was the suggestion of locker room tensions and Perkins' alleged disloyalty to his former teammates. In 2022, former Thunder teammate Serge Ibaka accused Perkins of breaking the locker room code by criticizing Durant and Westbrook behind their backs, and then in the media. This allegation aligned with Durant's possible perception of Perkins as someone who was willing to betray private team dynamics for public attention and media clout. If these allegations are true, it would explain why Durant has become so hostile toward Perkins over the years. There are few things more damaging to a professional athlete than the belief that a former teammate is willing to violate the sacred trust of the locker room for personal gain. This type of betrayal cuts deeper than any basketball disagreement because it strikes at the heart of what makes team sports possible: the ability to trust the people around you. The final and most personal factor in their deteriorating relationship is the simple reality that their friendship couldn't survive the collision between Perkins' confrontational personality and Durant's sensitivity to criticism. Perkins' emotional 2020 response to Durant calling him a sellout highlighted just how close they once were, referencing shared moments of vulnerability and support during difficult times in both of their lives. The tragedy of the Durant-Perkins relationship is that it represents the collision of two fundamentally different approaches to life in basketball. Perkins believed in confrontational leadership, public accountability, and the idea that tough love was the best way to motivate people. Durant, on the other hand, valued loyalty, privacy, and the belief that personal relationships should remain separate from public criticism. Neither approach is inherently wrong, but they were completely incompatible when applied to their relationship. What started as a genuine friendship between two very different people eventually became a cautionary tale about how professional sports can strain personal relationships beyond their breaking point. Tale of two careers, the statistical reality behind the feud. When you strip away all the personal drama, social media beef, and public feuding between Kevin Durant and Kendrick Perkins, what you're left with is a stark statistical reality that helps explain why their relationship became so contentious. This isn't just a story about two former teammates who don't get along, it's a tale of two completely different NBA careers that highlight the sometimes uncomfortable truth about professional sports. Not all teammates are created equal, and those differences can create lasting resentment. Looking at their career numbers side by side is like comparing a Ferrari to a pickup truck. Both vehicles serve a purpose, but one is clearly built for a different level of performance. Durant has played 1,061 games over 16 seasons, averaging 27.3 points, 7.0 rebounds, and 4.4 assists per game while shooting 50.2% from the field, 38.7% from three-point range, and 88.5% from the free throw line. These aren't just good numbers, they're historically elite numbers that place him among the greatest scorers in NBA history. Perkins, meanwhile, played 782 games over 14 seasons, averaging 5.4 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 1.0 assists per game while shooting 53.0% from the field, 0.0% from three-point range, and 59.4% from the free throw line. These numbers tell the story of a role player whose contributions came primarily on the defensive end and through intangibles that don't always show up in the box score. The difference in their scoring output alone is staggering. Durant has accumulated 30,571 career points compared to Perkins' 4,214, a gap of over 26,000 points that represents over 7 full seasons worth of production at Perkins' career average. To put this in perspective, Durant scored more points in his first 3 seasons than Perkins did in his entire 14-year career. But the statistical disparities become even more pronounced when you look at their advanced metrics. Durant's player efficiency rating of 23.2 reflects superstar-level impact, while Perkins' 10.7 PR is significantly below the NBA average of 15.0. Durant's win shares per 48 minutes of 0.196 indicates that he consistently contributed to winning at an elite level, while Perkins' 0.087 suggests a more modest impact on team success. The true shooting percentage comparison is particularly telling. Durant's 62.0% true shooting percentage demonstrates elite efficiency across all levels of scoring: two-pointers, three-pointers, and free throws. This means that for every 100 shooting possessions Durant used throughout his career, he generated the equivalent of 62 points, which is exceptional for any player, let alone someone with his volume of shots. Perkins' highest true shooting percentage was 63.2 in a season, according to ESPN. This is respectable for a traditional center who didn't attempt three-pointers. Perhaps the most revealing advanced statistic is their respective value over replacement player, VORP numbers. Durant's career VORP of 87.57 indicates that he contributed nearly 88 more wins over the course of his career than a replacement-level player would have. This is an extraordinary number that places him among the most valuable players in NBA history. Perkins' VORP of 2.0 suggests that his overall impact, while positive, was minimal compared to what teams could have expected from an average replacement player. The playoff numbers tell a similar story, but with an interesting twist that might help explain some of Perkins' resentment. Durant elevates his game in the postseason, averaging 29.3 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 4.2 assists per game over 170 playoff games. These numbers demonstrate his ability to perform when the stakes are highest, which is the ultimate test of any superstar player. Perkins, meanwhile, averaged 4.8 points and 5.8 rebounds per game over 134 playoff games, numbers that remain consistent with his regular season production. While consistency is valuable, the fact that his playoff averages were actually slightly lower than his regular season numbers suggests that he may have struggled to maintain his effectiveness against elite competition when defensive schemes became more sophisticated. This playoff performance gap becomes particularly relevant when you consider their infamous 2013 playoff series against the Memphis Grizzlies, the same series Durant referenced when he mocked Perkins' statistics during their 2020 Twitter feud. Durant's criticism that Perkins averaged a whopping 2 and 3 during that series, while shooting 26% from the field, was factually accurate and highlighted how Perkins' limitations became exposed against elite defensive teams. The individual accolades comparison is equally stark and helps explain why Durant might have been frustrated by Perkins' claims of leadership. Durant has won 1 MVP award, 2 Finals MVP awards, been selected to 14 All-Star games, made 11 All-NBA teams, and won 4 scoring titles. These honors represent recognition from his peers, coaches, and media members that he was consistently among the very best players in the world throughout his career. Perkins, despite playing 14 seasons in the NBA, never made an All-Star team, never made an All-NBA team, and never received a single MVP vote. This isn't a criticism of Perkins. Role players rarely receive individual recognition, but it does provide context for why Durant might have found it absurd when Perkins claimed to be the true leader of those Thunder teams. The championship comparison adds another layer to their complicated relationship. Durant won 2 NBA championships in 2017 and 2018 with the Golden State Warriors, serving as the Finals MVP both times. These titles came as the primary offensive weapon and closer for his team, carrying them through crucial moments when championships were won and lost. Perkins won 1 NBA championship in 2008 with the Boston Celtics as a starting center and defensive enforcer. His contribution to that championship was significant. He provided rim protection, set screens, and brought the physical presence that complemented the skills of Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen. However, his role was clearly that of a supporting player rather than a primary contributor. This difference in championship roles might help explain some of the tension between them. Perkins can legitimately claim that he was a key contributor to a championship team before Durant ever won one, and he did it by sacrificing individual statistics for team success. Durant, on the other hand, can point to his Finals MVP awards as evidence that he was the primary reason his teams won championships. The longevity and durability comparison reveals another interesting dynamic in their relationship. Durant has shown remarkable staying power, playing 18 seasons and maintaining elite production into his late 30s despite suffering major injuries including a Jones fracture, MCL sprain, and Achilles tear. His ability to return to superstar form after each injury demonstrates not just physical resilience, but the kind of elite talent that transcends normal aging curves. Perkins played 14 seasons but saw his career end earlier due to declining athleticism and the NBA's evolution away from traditional non-shooting centers. His physical style led to wear and tear issues, particularly after his torn MCL-PCL injury in the 2010 finals, which significantly impacted his mobility and effectiveness for the remainder of his career. Looking at their current status in 2025 provides a perfect snapshot of how their careers have diverged. Durant remains a top-tier player with the Phoenix Suns, averaging 26.8 points, 6.7 rebounds, and 5.0 assists on elite shooting percentages at age 36. Despite the Suns' disappointing 36-46 record and missed playoffs, Durant's individual production remains at an all-NBA level, proving that Father Time remains undefeated, but willing to negotiate with transcendent talent. Perkins, meanwhile, has been retired since 2018 and now works as an ESPN NBA analyst, appearing on shows like NBA Today, First Take, and NBA Countdown. His media career has actually given him more visibility and influence than he ever had as a player, which might explain some of his willingness to engage in public feuds with former teammates. The tragic irony of their relationship is that their statistical differences, while dramatic, don't necessarily invalidate Perkins' contributions to those Thunder teams. Basketball is a team sport where role players like Perkins can provide valuable invaluable contributions that don't always show up in traditional statistics. His rim protection, screen setting, and veteran leadership may have been crucial to the Thunder's success during their championship window. However, when Perkins began making claims about being the team's true leader and most important player, he crossed a line that the statistical evidence simply doesn't support. Durant's reaction to those claims, calling them the craziest I've seen, reflects the frustration of a generational talent who carried enormous responsibility and delivered elite production, being told that a role player was more important to the team's success. The numbers tell a story of two players who occupied completely different spaces in the basketball universe, and perhaps that's what makes their feud so compelling. It's not just about personal animosity or Twitter beef. It's about the fundamental question of how we value different types of contributions in team sports, and what happens when role players and superstars have irreconcilable differences about their relative importance to team success. If you enjoyed this video, click on any of the cards on your screen for more content.